Hello guys, I'm Will and welcome to the FP1 Post Podium Podcast. We're here after the British Grand Prix in Silverstone, a Grand Prix where I thought I wasn't going to have much to talk about, and well, that changed quite quickly towards the end of the race, didn't it? So, if you don't know what this is of course the podcast where a little bit after the Grand Prix, me and a special guest get to sit down and talk about the key talking points. Usually when the action's kind of calmed down, but I'm not going to lie, my heart is still going after that one. It just blew up at the end. And today, absolutely delighted to be joined by Beth from Beff1. Beth, firstly, how are you? How's it been?
Yeah, it's been great. I'm glad that we actually have something to talk about because until the last two laps, I didn't think we had much to talk about. And then everything happened at once and I had to take a breather for a good half an hour. But I think I'm okay. I think I'm able to actually talk about what happened now. So we'll give it a good shout and we'll try and fit everything into this episode that actually happened.
Yeah, I feel like it could be a bit of a challenge for this in the 20 minutes, but we'll see how we do. But yeah, just before we do get into that, do you want to talk a little bit about what you do over on your channel?
Yeah, so over on my channel, I described it the other week as I'm like the magpie that finds all the shiny things that haven't been picked up yet and picks them up and tries to make a video out of it. So I talk about more issues which aren't spoken about in Formula 1, so societal issues. For example, I spoke about the consequences of the paywall for Formula 1, and I also have a series on my channel called Formula 1 is Female, where I look at females in motorsport, just to try and give it that little bit more publicity that it actually needs and hopefully educate a few more people on the females who are up and coming in our motorsports.
Yeah, and did a really, really good channel. So all links that will be down in the description below. So go and make sure you do check out Beth and subscribe to her as well. Subscribe here if you haven't already as well. You should already have done that. But anyway, let's just talk on the race on a whole to begin with. If I asked you kind of sum up in a sentence, it can be quite difficult to do. But how would you kind of break that one down?
Oh my God, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, on my notes, straight off, I was like, Hulk deserves better. That man is the most unlucky man in F1 in the world, I swear to God. Then, at the start, I was like, 2 safety cars at the start? Spicy. This could be something interesting. Then I got bored halfway during the race, went for a wee, went and made myself a cup of tea, which I never do. I never usually leave the screen, but did that in this race. And then, final 2 laps, I almost threw up because I was that nervous. I didn't know what was going on. But I'm so glad I stuck around. I wish a lot of us in the community were planning on going to watch that race. And I so wish we were all there to see it. But we got to watch it at home. And as well, I think Pirelli must have pooed themselves a little bit, to be honest. And they are very, very lucky that there wasn't any huge accidents on those last couple of laps. But I think they've got a lot of questions that they're going to have to answer.
They do indeed. I was sat watching it with a friend who was watching. I was on Sky Go, and he was sat watching the official kind of TV broadcast. He was about half a lap ahead of me.
That's the
and he
worst.
was just going mad. I was like, "Stop it! Just shut up! I'm muting you. You're not. Just be quiet." And then, with all the team radio, I was trying to listen to team radio. He sat talking over. I'm like, "Shut up! There's team radio on. You can't talk over it." But he was sat there talking about the next explosion that happened up ahead. So it was kind of spoiled for me a little bit. Like, and he also had his TV volume coming through, so I could hear that Hamilton had won it. So it was kind of spoiled for me a little bit at the end. But so thank you. You know who you are. I know you're watching as well. So thank you for that. But yeah, all the same, it was an incredible end to the Grand Prix. We'll touch on that a little bit more later. But yeah, you mentioned Hulkenberg back for this race, replacing Sergio Perez, who contracted COVID-19 earlier in the week. Obviously, all our thoughts go out to him and hope that he makes a very speedy recovery. But as you said, the most unlucky guy in Formula 1. I think 24 hours before the race, wasn't even in the country. He flies over, was up until like 2 a.m, getting a seat fitting, making sure he could find overalls that fit him, and, comes in, does pretty well in practice. I think, in qualifying, what was he, like, within a tenth,
P13,
2/10 of Stroll?
But in practice, he was more than often in the top 10, which, when you think about it, it's really quite impressive, seeing as he hasn't trained for Formula 1. He's missed the first 3 races. He's gone in, it's not even like he's gone back in the Renault, he's gone in a completely different car. Very, very lucky that he has been in that team before, so he's used to a lot of the team members that are there and the setup. But overall, I was very impressed. We were all hoping for like a Hulk podium or some absolute miracle, which unfortunately we didn't get. But I think a lot of people need to give him a bit more credit than they have been doing, because it's not an easy thing to do.
Of course, I completely agree. And, he's also coming into what is arguably the fastest car he's ever driven, because it's miles ahead of where that Renault was last year. It's effectively, the Mercedes of last year. I can't remember who was joking about it, saying that Hulkenberg's finally achieved one of his lifelong goals of driving a Mercedes Formula 1 car. Now he has. So, he drove it in qualifying, but just not in the race. They couldn't even get the engine started, which for me surprises me a little bit. I'm surprised they didn't kind of check that or start the engine up sooner. By the sounds of things, that error, that mistake, whatever was wrong with the car was basically terminal. He was never going to get out, but absolutely gutting for Hulkenberg. I'm hoping he can come back for next weekend. There's still a little bit of a grey area as to whether Perez should be allowed to return or not. I think, for those that don't know, when he had the initial test, the government advice from the UK was a 7-day quarantine. Though by the time it was officially announced that he wasn't be taking part, that government advice had changed to 10 days. So obviously 7 days he'd still be allowed to race next weekend, but I think the FIA and F1 are pushing for Perez to be out for this weekend and obviously next weekend as well. So do you think Hulkenberg will return? I imagine he will, but is there any chance you think he couldn't?
I hope to God he is racing next week. We cannot have had all of that excitement and all of that joy to see our favourite driver that we all agree, I think, deserve to have a seat this year, and which is over a lot of drivers that are on that grid, let's be real. And he deserves his redemption moment. That's what he deserves. But what I'm also hoping is he can get a lot of beauty sleep this weekend, and until Friday, if he ends up being in that car, he can get himself rested. Hopefully his neck can have a nice little rest. But I think what would have been really helpful is, even if he didn't have a stellar performance today, you could just get some laps in that car, because he needs that little bit more for him to be able to get a good result. I mean, Racing Point in general, obviously we were all shocked that Hulk didn't even make it to the grid, but they have had a few reliability issues with Stroll in the first race of the year, and that's something that's really actually letting them down. They've got this brilliant car that seems to be arguably the third fastest car on the grid, but they keep having these reliability issues, and when you're fighting in that midfield battle between Renault, McLaren, and let's be honest, Ferrari this year, you can't afford to have one car not make it to the end of the race, because that's valuable points where these other teams, especially McLaren, are picking up the points. So I really, really hope they sort it out, and really they should take that as their argument to Renault's protest about them and say, look, this isn't the same car, because look at Mercedes' car last year. Did that break? No. Does our car break? Yes. So I think that's a valid argument for them to get away with it.
You mentioned that Renault, of course, now protested again. There's news coming out. There's more news coming out week on week, and they've now arranged a proper hearing for this, I believe, next week. So hopefully not too long now before we know the actual answers and what's going to happen. I've asked everyone else who's come on, but what do you think the result of this protest is going to be? Are we really going to see these results stricken off the record?
Honestly, I have no idea. I've made it very, very clear on my channel that when it comes to technical aspects, that's stuff that goes right over my head. I see a car and go, it's a car. That is how far I go with technical aspects. But you can see why Renault are doing it, especially when the midfield is so tight. If they think they can protest something and they can get a result out of it, of course they're going to do it. Yes, it's boring every week just to see Renault tweet, yes, we've done a protest. And because it's not something that's so quick and easy to get a result, we'll be waiting for quite a while. I just hope it doesn't go on for so long and then we get the result and it is deemed as illegal and we see all of those points go away, because it takes away the fun of Formula 1. We look back and we go, oh, okay, so what is valid? Where are we seeing this now? What's going to be the consequences for Racing Point if this is found to be illegal? So I get why they're doing it, but part of me is like, just let it be. If you're salty, build a better car.
Copy the Ferrari. Actually, no, don't do
that.
No,
don't copy the Ferrari.
Copy any car. Copy the Williams. You'd be more competitive if you did that. But I think for me, I can't see the FIA completely striking all these results off the off the record. I think what they're more likely to do is make a clarification to the rules so that this can't happen again. Because think about the amount of money that's going to cost Racing Point. I could make an entire video out of this on its own, couldn't you? But think of the amount of money it's going to cost Racing Point to either redesign the brand new car very, very quickly, or how much money they'll lose if they bring in the 2019 car, which is the other option they might have if their RP20 isn't allowed to race. So, yeah, I don't know. Now, we spoke about Hulkenberg and unlucky drivers. We've got to talk about Alex Albon as well. He really struggled this weekend. And obviously, I put the video out earlier this week saying, should he get dropped? And at the end of that, I said, no, not yet anyway. I think he deserves to at least stay out this year, maybe even stay out next year as well, because who is actually going to replace him in that team, let's be honest, at the moment. This weekend, though, for me, was his weakest at Red Bull on a whole since he moved there just about a year ago now. You know, obviously that crash in practice really upset his confidence. He lost all of FP3. And then, although there was a clash with Magnussen, which I don't think he should have got a penalty for, and I think that only docked his confidence more, he really did struggle to make his way through the pack today. So what's your take on that?
Oh, Alex is so frustrating. I think as well, first of all, obviously, is his qualifying. His qualifying is nowhere near good enough. That is a huge weakness of his, which needs to be sorted out, because at the end of the day, yes, you can qualify further back and make your way up the field, but if he keeps doing that, there's absolutely no way he's going to get the podiums, which Red Bull really, really need and really, really desire from him. But also, his opening laps as well, they're not great as well. That seems to be a weakness that he's having, and because it seems to end up him being in the wrong place at the wrong time. He's not performing how he should be, but also I think he'd be doing a lot better if he wasn't having all of these misfortunes which keep happening. So his instance with Hamilton today with K-Mag, that could have been very easily avoided, but personally I think Magnussen wasn't quite in the right place and that penalty wasn't justified. But it's really quite difficult to look at it from away because he's had so many misfortunes. It doesn't seem to be quite as clean cut to me as the Gasly situation last year. With Gasly, I think we saw more crashes, more mistakes, less performance from him, whereas Alex at the moment, he's had a few misfortunes here and there which have contributed to his results. Yes, this week I completely agree with you, it's the worst week, but we can't really compare too much so far. Hopefully we will get a week next week where he gets less misfortune and we see something more based on pure performance, which would be great as well, because we're at Silverstone next week. It's far easier to compare one week to another because we're at exactly the same track. So hopefully he can pick up. Personally though, I want to say he had a really, really good recovery drive with everything that went on and how everything went down. I personally want to see his last 10 lap onboards, because he flew through that field. Once he did his second pit stop, he actually went through that field so quick, and he was actually only just over a second behind Gasly for P7. So everything that went on, he did really, really well despite the circumstances. It could have been a lot better, but it could have been a lot worse.
Indeed, I think you're right. And what Red Bull really needs to do now is show him that support. And I don't mean Christian will come out saying, yes, we support Albon, because that doesn't help. He needs to be shown support, not just in the media, but internally as well. We saw through Drive to Survive Season 2 the way Gasly was treated, especially after he was left. Horner was awful towards him. And as someone who has, liked Christian Horner and over the years and been at least used to be a massive Red Bull fan up until a few years ago, where I kind of became more neutral, it's not great to see, and it's not nice to see it. It's we've got to take it out of a sport context and just think in real life terms here. That's not how you treat another human being, no matter how good or badly they're performing for you. I don't care how cutthroat Formula 1 is. You can't. You're basically treating them like shit, and that's enough said. You shouldn't treat another human being like shit, especially not now.
I've decided I've got a new challenge for Red Bull, and it's called sign contracts as quick as McLaren do challenge. There's all of this talk about, should Alex stay at Red Bull? Will Alex stay at Red Bull? Will Red Bull retain Alex? And I don't know if it's just me, but I think it's so clear that at the moment, there's no one to replace Alex. It seems like the Seb ship has sailed to bring him home. They've got no juniors that they can shove right up in that Red Bull seat, because that's just marketing suicide. And similar, putting Gasly or Kvyat back in that seat is marketing suicide. There's genuinely no one that will go in that seat which will fit well. So I don't see, they've already signed Max. Why not sign Alex, give him that little bit of confidence. Okay, at least I've got a seat for him next year. And I'm sure you'll see the performances improve. Red Bull just blow my mind. Honestly, I do not understand their team at all. It's almost as mad as Haas, to be honest, at this point.
Let's not touch Haas. Haas are a topic for another day. But you know, it's a difficult one with Albon. I would like to see how well he performs if you put a contract in front of him. I think, you know, if Albon is given a contract between this week and next week, I think his demeanour in the paddock will change a lot because he'll know he's safe. He's not worrying about his future. The mistakes will decrease. He'll be closer to Verstappen. He'll have better race pace. He'll probably be a bit more punchy in the race as well, which is what we were seeing towards the back end of last year when he was arguing at his happiest with Red Bull because he knew he was staying on for next year. And again, you know, we saw that in Brazil. He should have got that podium. Of course, #blessed took him out at that point. But, you know, it's a tricky situation with Alex. I just do hope things improve for him. Let's move on then to the lull of the race, that middle stage where there was basically, I think Jarno Trulli got into the Haas car and created the Trulli train.
Did.
It was, I mean, to be fair, hats off to him. He was on worn tyres. I guess what Haas were trying to do was they were hoping there'd be a second safety car so they could retain that track position.
Yeah,
but to be fair, Grosjean defended well, and if not a little bit aggressively at some points. I think some of the moves were a little bit touch and go, especially the one with, I want to say it was Ricciardo and Sainz as well. Those two were a little bit too much. I mean, he did get a warning for those. But yeah, what was your take on that midfield battle? Because I think Grosjean shone there. I'll give that. Yes, he finished 16th because that was right.
Whoa, Will say something positive about Grosjean.
Calm down. Calm down. I'm cutting that out now. It's not going in. But, you know, on the flip side, you had drivers like Ricciardo that, I'll be honest, I'm a massive Ricciardo fan, but I don't think he really got the best out of that Renault at that middle stage of the race anyway. And, you know, Stroll as well was disappointing today, I had to say. You know, what was your take on that midfield battle then?
Okay, so starting off with Grosjean, I was really, really happy that yet again Haas are doing something wild with their strategy. I have this thing with teams who, so at the back of the championship, so you're talking Haas, you're talking Alpha, you're talking Williams, who just do the same thing week in, week out. And if you're in that position, it's not going to work. You're not going to get the points. You need to do something radical, like we saw with Haas last week when they pitted on the formation lap. And what happened? It worked. It's a massive risk to take, but sometimes you've got to pull it off. And when I saw Grosjean stay out when everyone else pitted under the safety car, I was like, bloody hell, Haas are going to pull another blinder. It only takes one more safety car and they've got them all and they're going to be like flipping the birds at them like, ha. And I'm glad that Grosjean clearly is putting faith in his team. And saying, yeah, that's fine, I'll stay out, we'll give it a go, we'll see what happens. He had some really, really good defending. We all thought I was going to drop like an absolute stone, but no, he defended well. Yes, it might have been a train at one point, but it doesn't matter because he was ahead of all of the other cars. And then Haas decided to put the Haas on at the end, which, honestly, I want what Haas is smoking because it sounds great, to be honest. They just seem to pick and choose whatever they want to do at any given time.
Just spin a wheel. What tyres do they want?
Yeah, what tyres do we want? What time are we going to pit? Honestly, Ricciardo, for me, absolutely incredible scenes. He is the driver of the day for me. Some quality moves. You saw a little glimpse of classic Ricciardo in there a little bit. And also doing classic Ricciardo, somehow making the tyres last and maintaining the performance for those tyres. I mean, I don't know whether it was the team giving both him and Ocon instructions because they both seemed to hold that performance a lot longer and a lot later into the race than other drivers. Other drivers seemed to drop off and they seemed to be maintaining their own and even doing better with their race pace. I was very, very impressed with him. And he was less than a second off a podium in a Renault. So really, really happy times and hopefully he can do just as well next week.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a big confidence boost for Ricciardo. He's had a bit of a difficult start to the season, a lot of bad luck, but things are finally starting to come good, which is really great to see. Right, I'm conscious of time, so we can't not talk about the British Grand Prix without talking about those last few laps, which was something else. It was, I was laying back, about to go to sleep, wasn't really interested in the race anymore. Then all of a sudden, like I said, the guy that was watching it was about half a lap ahead, went and said, "Oh my God!" I was like, "Oh, there's nothing going to happen," you know. And then Bottas is sat there running wide with 3 tyres. And I'm like, oh my God, this is where it's all going off now. I think we touched on it earlier. Pirelli, they've got a lot of questions to ask here. It's not the first time we've seen failures like this in Silverstone. 2013, there were some really scary ones at some quite high speed parts of the circuit. I think I remember Felipe Massa absolutely pirouetting off into the gravel trap around turn 4, turn 5, I think, at one point. You'll find it on YouTube if you go and look it up. But, it's not the first time we've seen this. In 2017 or 2018 as well, both Ferraris at the end of the race had tyre failures identical to it. Now, thankfully, we were in slow parts of the track where, all three of those failures happened. But, what was your take on that?
Well, it's obvious there's going to be some questions asked. It's not a coincidence that 3 tyres blew up in the space of 2 laps. That's not a coincidence. And they'll
Same
all be
compound as well.
Yeah, they'll all be taking a very good look at why that happened. And I'm sure that teams will be taking a look at all of their data, and especially the teams that didn't have any issues with the tyres are probably going to be looking at that and thinking, how close were we to having a similar incident? And we've got softer compounds next week, so that's going to come into play. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of teams try and play it a bit safer next week, and we're going to see a lot more 2-stop strategies, which will be interesting. But I felt so bad for both Bottas and Carlos. Bottas in particular, because that guy is just the unluckiest man. It could have happened to anyone. It could have happened to Hamilton. On the flip side, Hamilton is counting his chickens because he is the luckiest man alive. Like, what did he do in an earlier life to be so lucky? 1 more lap to go, or 1 lap earlier for the puncher to happen, and it would have all been over. He would have been out of the points. And he's Hamilton's drive, regardless though, on that last lap was just faultless. He is the real life Lightning McQueen. I've seen it everywhere that everyone is calling Lewis Hamilton Lightning McQueen, but with these tyres, there'll be an investigation, but I think come next week, it won't be too much of an issue. People will take the risks when they have to take the risks and go from there.
Yeah, I think Pirelli will be a lot more cautious on their kind of tyre predictions as well. You mentioned Hamilton. Jeez, my heart was in my mouth. Like, I'm not a Hamilton fanboy, no matter what some commenters say. And yes, I'm wearing a Mercedes top here, but I think we all know who we're talking about. You'll find him in the comments. He's probably on this video. But no, in all fairness, you've got to give it to him. That was. I wanted him to win this weekend because it's the British Grand Prix. I want to support a British driver, and at the end of the day, Williams aren't going to win it. Lando is a brilliant driver. But he's going to get P4, P5 at best, unless we throw something ridiculous. Hamilton is the guy you want to win on the British GP Sunday. Let's be honest here. And as a British fan, that's what I want. And I was so happy to see him in the end. Also, as being someone who's not a massive Max fan, and here come the dislikes. Again, I was quite happy that Max wasn't able to take that win. But it was something else. And I've heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, why didn't Hamilton pit?" Well, bear in mind at that point, Verstappen hadn't pitted, and I don't think Red Bull would have pitted Max if they would have got the race win by staying out, or got the race lead by staying out. Christian Horner has gone and said that, we had to cover our backs, It's a tricky situation, I think, in that sense. Do you think Red Bull made the mistake of pitting, or do you think they had to pit and had to cover each other off? Because I think they would have fallen back. We would have seen, had Verstappen had an issue, we would have seen Charles and Danny Rick on the podium.
Scenes.
Scenes.
Honestly, it's one of those, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't moment. It will forever be a what if moment. Like, what if this happened? What if that happened? And to be fair, at the end of the day, you've got to think, I think probably at that point, I don't even think Albon was in the points yet. Like, within 2 laps ago, I don't think he was in the points. So you've got to look at it from Red Bull's point of view. Do we want to... They didn't know that was going to happen to Hamilton's tyre. They looked at it and thought, okay, we've got a free pit stop. Let's put some tyres on, get the fastest lap. And essentially what they're doing is they're trying to maximise the amount of points for the situation that's happening at that time. None of them are fortune tellers. None of them could tell that what's going to happen. And yes, hindsight is a wonderful thing. You can look back and be like, oh, what if we did this? Then this would have happened. But then also, if this happened, this would have happened. They've got the best result that they possibly could have got. I don't think they would, if you replay that event again, I don't think they would do it any other way. There's just no logical point. And yeah, apparently Max was complaining about vibrations. If you've got a free pit stop and there's nothing to lose, why wouldn't you pit on the last lap? And yeah, I see absolutely no reason. It's just kind of that little like gutting feeling at the end. But at least Max got a little bit of excitement at the end because he was very lonely in that race.
He sounds so bored over the radio as well. Right, we'll start finishing up then. One last thing I want to cover before we do end things off is obviously predictions for next week for the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. I love that name. That is the best name of a race I have ever seen. But yeah, so, you know, could you give me a top 3 and a bold prediction for next weekend?
Oh my god, I planned so well for this video, and it's the one thing I had so much to think about. It's the one thing I didn't do. Right, okay. Well, next week it's meant to be hotter again. We're meant to have a hot Friday, but weekend is meant to be a little bit hotter than it was. So that's exciting. I'm sure the weather would have changed about 50 million times by the time we get to next week, so that's completely useless to go off. But honestly, I think we're going to see a Hamilton pole and Hamilton win again. That guy at the moment is just untouchable, and that is his stomping ground. That is where he's dominant, and I see absolutely no one coming anywhere near him. I think unless something wild happens, Bottas will come second. That's what we all predicted this weekend, but somehow didn't happen. So Bottas second, that's in quali and the race. And I'm going to say this because at some point it will happen. There will be a racing point on the podium. If it does not happen, honestly, at this point, when is it going to happen? And I would love it to be Hulk. I would love it. We would all love it. We're all manifesting at the moment. We've all got our candles and our shrines set up, ready for the Hulk moment. But I'm going to say a Stroll podium. And something exciting. I think we might see a team clash, and it will either be McLaren or Renault.
Don't say that.
Either McLaren or Renault. They're going to clash. I can feel it. We've had a Ferrari one, so I think it's time for a midfield one at some point.
I hate to see Carlos and Lando come to blows. I couldn't. I'm going to end things off really quickly. So my top 3, I'm going to be a bit boring, but I'm going to go for Lewis to win it again, because I just think he's just so dominant around Silverstone. Bottas in second, it'll get them their tyre troubles under control, and Verstappen in third. So where it probably should have ended this weekend without that last lap drama. But, in terms of bold prediction, again, I've said it and not really thought of one, but I'm going to go, I'm going to go for, Kimi Räikkönen to get in the points.
No,
yeah,
come on, my guy has had enough. My guy is napping. He's had enough. He's just vibing at the back. He can't be bothered anymore. That is wild. That is too much. That's like saying Merkel's not going to be 1-2.
It'll be crazy, but I think Kimi can get it. I want to put my faith in him, and he needs to. Otherwise, he is going to find himself out of Alfa Romeo, even though I think he's going to retire anyway. You know, I think if Kimi walks into the boardroom when they say, "Oh yeah, can I have another year?" all the Alfa Romeo boardroom guys are gonna be like, "Oh shit, I thought he was leaving."
What do we do? We can't say no to Kimi.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's it for the last end today, guys. Make sure you check out Beth down, and like I said, her link will be down in the description below. So do make sure you go click on that and give her a sub as well. Let me know what your thoughts are of the British Grand Prix and what your predictions are for the next weekend at the 70th anniversary race, also in Silverstone. But yeah, that's it from us today. Hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I will see you all in the next one.